Alright, now excuse the audio. I've switched my operating system, and until I can get a new mic, you just have to bear with it. So anyway, here is a hypothesis on positive and negative water from like a chemical standpoint, so to speak. What does that mean? Well, I will show you in 1 second. Okay. So let's just say we have a glass of water here, right? Or liquid. It's meant to be liquid. Liquid. Right. So we have a glass of liquid, and it can either be well, it could be pretty much anything, but it can either be positive, neutral, or negative. Let's just say, for sake of argument, we've got these 3 categories here. What does that actually mean in a practical way? Right, so things like negative waters, negative liquids, stuff like water, alcohol, yep, vinegar, and ammonia, and various acids, mineral acids. So, vinegar, of course, is an acid. Ammonia is a alkali. It's alkaline. Depending on how you want to define things, you could say an alkali is like an ash or hydroxide or whatever. So I hope this gives you some kind of idea. Now, what does it mean by negative? It means it's pulling from something. And if I don't know chemistry, I'll be honest, I know a tiny bit of it. But there's probably some idea about positive, negative, like electron charges and such, about how how things bind together, like salts, how one thing pulls and one thing gives and whatever. I think it could relate to that. But I'm working on a practical level. See, I'm not interested in words and science and all this. Even, to some extent, even in math, these things are nice, but I want it on a practical level of what it physically does. So we take a jar of one of these liquids, and we put in some kind of thing, like a herb, a mineral, or a animal matter, right? So we put in, which is the 3 kingdoms, of course, herbal, mineral, animal. You put them into the negative liquid, the negatively kind of, we'll just call these negative liquid. And it starts to draw out the essence of, you got something here, it's drawing it out. And then your liquid becomes neutral, usually. So now it's neutrally charged because it's got color to it. It drew out the oil, which is essence, or in alchemy, this is the what do you call it? The sulfur, or the soul. I'll thin my pen down a bit. So I haven't done a whiteboard lecture in a while, I'm a little rusty. It also draws out the mineral, which is the salt. Or in alchemy, it's salt as well, or body. And this negative liquid is usually what we call the mercury, or spirit, solvent, etc. So negative liquids are basically solvents, if you use ammonia, which is the alcohol solvent, you will dissolve alcohol, the animal solvent, you will dissolve animal products. You can also use, vinegar, alcohol, water, mineral acids to dissolve animal things. But, it's like each kingdom works well for that. Ammonia is good for oils specifically because it is alkaline. Well, mineral acids are better for minerals because it is acidic, and that's a whole other video, but just sake of reference. And then alcohol is good for, I guess, the liquid component, whatever. Okay, so basically you take this negative liquid, you put something in it and it becomes neutral. So what is positive liquid then? If we can have neutral liquid, and the idea is the neutral liquid, if I get alcohol and I put a bunch of herbs in it, right, and then I pour off that alcohol into another container, more like that, right? So I take it and I pour it off into another container, and it's amber colored or red colored or whatever because it's already got all this essence in it, all this salt and such in it. Can I use this to then kind of put more, herbs in and extract the essence out of those herbs? A little bit, yes, because it's still neutral. So, even with the positive liquid, you kind of, but the positive liquid it more marinates it. It gives to it, which we'll talk about in a minute. So the idea is a negative liquid is it has no body to it. It has no oil to it. So it wants to draw. If you drink water, it draws from you to an extent. It can draw salt if you drink too much. If you drink distilled water, it draws a lot from you, and it doesn't really hydrate you. It's kind of weird, which is why you want to mineralize your water if you distill it, or mineralized water is more neutral. It's more instead distilled water is very negative, and water is fairly negative. Mineralized water is more neutral because it's got more minerals in it. It's carrying something, so it can't draw too much from other stuff. Do you get what I mean by that? It's already filled up with stuff. You'd have to distill it. For this alcohol, you have to distill a little retort here, get it bubbling, steaming, and then again you'd have to, I've got a little flask here, right? Just redistill it to purify it. Now what happens is that you've got the negative liquid here now from distilling. That's how you get negative liquids. You distill, dry distill, you wet distill, whatever. And left in here you've got this oil, salt, like some salts. If you burnt down whatever resinous material you had in here, you would get a mineral salt, right? Okay, going to positive liquids. What is a positive liquid? So if we take a jar of water, I think this is how it works. I'm not sure. I'm not much of a crystal person. Take a jar of water and then you take a big bag of like a sack full of copper sulfate, right? And you just pour that shit in, and it makes it blue, and it super saturates it with the copper, right? I don't know if you have to use electrolysis to get it working as well, or if you can just super saturate it. But either way, the idea is you're trying to super saturate it with salt. You could just use table salt, to be honest. You could just, I don't recommend you eat table salt. Get that sea salt, Himalayan or whatever. But okay, so we got the salt, we got the salt shaker, and you're salting this water, and it's getting very salty. And what happens is that it gets super salty to a point where it can't carry any more salt, and then the salt starts to build up on the bottom here. Okay, it builds up. Now this water is positive. If you had, so we have the positive, the neutral is you've added some salt to it. It's a little bit salty, but it doesn't have. It's not building up at the bottom. Negative is there's no salt. There is no salt. Don't allow it. It's just water. It's just distilled water. Okay. So salty water, really salty water, and distilled water. That's with salt specifically. You could have the same thing with resin. Maybe you could over resin the water by water refining a lot of plant essence or resins, and then just putting too much into it, and then it becomes positive. And another thing is the bacteria and brewing and distillation and all that. So we got our, this is brewing, it's living water, right? And at the bottom you start to get the waste of the bacteria. It's at the top and it's dropping it down. Okay. It's positive because it's producing something, negative because it's taking something. I think this is partly how the idea of multiplication works in alchemy, is you what do you call it? You use bacteria to produce more. I don't know if that works, but that's kind of where I'd be looking into to do it. So over time, the positive liquid produces more depending on what it is. If it's salt, it produces crystals of salt. It produces crystals, whatever. If it's bacterial, it produces that soft stuff. So you can kind of go the hard and the soft. Hard / soft. Hard is crystal. Crystal. And soft is like this powdery, fluffy, sometimes jelly, crystal rock, kind of like a mineralish, like a lump of mineral. And these are the things produced by positive liquids, is that they just over time, it's time, it's okay, so it's like, I don't know, times time, time, that's time symbol. So it's like y, I don't know what y is in this scenario, I'll figure it out another time. Y times time equals product. Product, right? And usually soft is the soil, so to speak, the growing grounds for the hard stuff, the crystals, the rocks and minerals. The soft stuff grows this. But yeah, why I guess would be, I think it could be like time, also times by temperature, I think. Excuse my illogical mathematics, but whatever. It's what we have to do. Excuse me. Like in we're bringing math into the third, well, not, I guess technically the the XY dimension instead of just the linear plane. It's the up and down plane as well, if you know what I mean. So temperature, or to times, or not really times it, but temperature something time. I don't know, maybe it is times it. Yeah, I don't know, because it's to do with the temperature. I imagine if you had a bunch of copper sulfate and you want the crystals to crystallize, if it was really cold, maybe it would crystallize better. Because I think cold is better for crystals. I think, and then so the hard stuff, maybe this is better with cold, and then this soft stuff is better with hot. Because if you think so, if you're trying to brew something, it's better when it's warmer, usually. It doesn't brew very quick when it's cold. You get what I'm saying? So temperature is important for this. So you really think, like, if you just have a jar there, how does a jar produce things? Well, it produces things through time, right? Through time. It's journeying. It's like, whoa. You're going where it's warping through dimensions of, it's like spaces warping out into you. And I don't believe in that Einsteinian crap, but you know what I mean. Whoa. Holy shit. Anyway, so we're like journeying through a warp gate of time. And temperature also affects it, because if you think about it, everything's all constantly affected by temperature. That's kind of one of the ambient things, the ambient backdrops, and somehow energy relates to this. Energy could just be temperature. You know what I mean? Like, maybe, because one of the ambient things is air. I guess air holds temperature. Would that make... Let's put this out in the box. So we've got air. Within air is temperature. And within... I gotta make this bigger. Within temperature, does that make it... Is that energy? Alright, so air... Within air is temperature, which is hot and cold, you know. Temperature. Also moisture, I guess. Moisture, or lack of it. And then within that, is that energy? And then within air, or outside of air, is space. Yeah, space. Space is there, and then time is there. Do you know what I mean? So it's like within time, within reality, I guess you could say. Reality is time, and within time is space. Within space is air and temperature and moisture. Would moisture be within temperature, or would temperature would be within moisture? I don't know. One or the other. And then energy, is that like is this how the energy works? Something like that. I'll figure it out in another video. So that's kind of how you can figure it out, like, mathematically, because that's, you know, what exactly is affecting it to make something through with the positive liquid. Similarly with the negative, how is the negative liquid drawing something out? If you heat up the negative liquid, it draws more. If you give it more time, it draws more. You know, a hotter tea draws more oil or essence and salt and such. Colder tea is different. You can cold brew stuff. It's, you know, extracts different stuff. So I guess negative and positive is affected by time and temperature. Yeah. And you could add more to this mathematics by saying, like, the amount of water. Maybe some astrological stuff will do that, but, you know, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I think a little bit too intense. Anyway, I hope you get the idea on this. That there are these kind of different types of, what would you say, that positive liquid it's got too much in it and it wants to release, and I think it maybe neutralizes itself, tries to reach a homeostasis through giving up parts, like giving up the crystals, giving up the bacteria or whatever this soft fluffy stuff is. But I'll have to figure out another word. While the negative liquid wants to gain stuff. Well, in nature, you know, water is always drawing in salts and minerals and whatever essences from all things around us. That's why your natural water is probably pretty good for you. Maybe who knows? You can get like a river or something. Anyway, that's all for this one. Of course, feel free to check the links in the description, and have a nice day.